The day the town decided Mara Elridge was a liar, the sun stood straight overhead, merciless and bright, as if it wanted every accusation to be seen clearly. Dust drifted along the main road like whispered judgment, and people stopped pretending not to stare. By noon, her name had already hardened into a warning, a story people passed between open doors and across counters. She felt it before she understood it, that sudden shift where kindness dries up and the air itself feels thinner. Somewhere beyond the grain silos and the church steeple, a rancher named Calhoun Reed said nothing at all, even though the truth lived in his chest and pressed against his ribs like a trapped bird. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and stories that remind us why empathy still matters, take a moment right now to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel Kindness Wave. Your support helps keep these stories alive, and it tells the world that compassion still has a place. Mara had come back to the town of Dry Creek under a high blue sky, hoping daylight would soften old edges. She had left 7 years earlier with a single suitcase and a quiet promise to herself that she would return only when she had something solid to stand on. What she carried back was not wealth or prestige, but a folded letter, a careful plan to reopen her late grandmother's bakery, and a need to put roots down where she had once been known. The building still smelled faintly of sugar and warm flour when she unlocked it that morning, sunlight pouring through the front windows and turning dust into gold. She believed, foolishly perhaps, that honest work in the open daylight would be enough. The trouble began with a missing envelope and a story that grew teeth. The town council had approved a small grant to revive local businesses, and Mara's name had been on the list. When the envelope disappeared from the clerk's desk, suspicion moved like heat toward the easiest target. She had been gone too long, people said. She was desperate, people added. By mid-afternoon, the word liar had been stapled to her name, and by evening, the story had sharpened into something crueler. No one asked her how she planned to buy ovens or why she spent her mornings scrubbing old counters instead of celebrating an imagined theft. The daylight that had felt so welcoming in the morning now seemed to expose her, leaving nowhere to hide. Calhoun Reed watched all of this from the far edge of town, where his ranch rolled out under the same unbroken sun. He was a man shaped by early mornings and long shadows, known for keeping his fences straight and his opinions private. He had been present the day the envelope went missing, standing near the clerk's desk with dust on his boots and a hat pulled low, delivering paperwork for grazing permits. He had seen a hand reach where it should not have, quick and practiced, and he had recognized the sleeve. The truth had lodged in him then, heavy and undeniable. Yet when the murmurs started and the glances sharpened, he stayed quiet. Silence, he told himself, was simpler. Silence did not stir old debts or reopen wounds he had buried under years of work. Mara spent the next days under the glare of the same relentless daylight, trying to prove herself with effort alone. She cleaned the bakery from top to bottom, hauled broken equipment into the alley, and posted a hand-lettered sign announcing fresh bread soon. Children still pressed their faces to the glass, curious and hopeful, but their parents pulled them away. Friends from her childhood crossed the street rather than meet her eyes. Each afternoon, the sun poured down and seemed to bleach her resolve thin. She wrote letters to suppliers and banks, each one polite and careful, explaining delays without. Explaining the ache that came with being doubted by a place she loved. The rancher's silence had a cost even then, though he did not yet tally it. Calhoun felt it in the way his coffee tasted bitter at midday and in the restless pacing of his horse when he rode fence lines under the open sky. He told himself that truth would surface on its own, that towns corrected their own mistakes eventually. But the more he watched, the more he saw how a lie, once fed, could stand tall in daylight and cast a long shadow. He saw Mara carrying sacks of flour alone, her shoulders squared against whispers, and something in him tightened. The turning point came on a morning so bright it hurt to look at. The council called a public meeting, choosing the hour when the sun was highest, as if transparency could be forced by light alone. People gathered in the hall, faces flushed and certain. Mara stood at the front, hands steady, eyes lifted. She did not beg. She laid out receipts, timelines, and plans, trusting facts to do what kindness would not. The town listened with folded arms. The word liar hovered, unspoken but present, thick as dust. Calhoun sat in the back, hat in his hands, the truth now pounding. He knew the sleeve he had seen belonged to Owen Pike, a man with influence and a talent for smiling through favors. Speaking would mean crossing someone who controlled leases and loans, someone who could make a rancher's life lean. It would mean admitting that his silence had already done harm. The daylight pressed through the windows, unforgiving, and Calhoun felt the weight of years when he had chosen quiet over right. When he stood, the room stilled, not from respect but surprise. He told the truth without flourish, letting it fall plain and complete into the open air. He described the moment, the hand, the sleeve, and his own failure to speak sooner. The room shifted as if the floor itself had tilted. Owen Pike's smile thinned, then vanished. The truth, once released, moved fast. It had the momentum of something denied too long. The council recessed under the blazing sun, and by afternoon, the missing envelope had been found where it had been hidden. The town's certainty cracked. Truth did not restore everything it touched. Mara's name was cleared on paper, but wounds do not vanish at noon just because the light is strong. Apologies came awkwardly, some sincere, some shaped like excuses. The grant was reinstated, but delays had cost her contracts and confidence. For Calhoun, the cost came swiftly. Leases were reconsidered, credit tightened, and quiet pressures mounted. The same people who praised his honesty in daylight avoided him in private. He returned to his ranch under the wide sky, knowing he had chosen the harder road too late to be painless. Mara reopened the bakery on a morning that felt deliberately gentle, sunlight warm but not harsh. The smell of bread drifted into the street, inviting and undeniable. People came, first in twos and threes, then in a steady line. She greeted them with a tired smile that held both relief and restraint. Forgiveness, she knew, was a process, not a performance. She worked through the day, hands busy, heart cautiously open. At midday, Calhoun appeared at the door, hat in hand again, eyes steady. He did not ask for thanks. He bought a loaf and left a note folded small, words of regret and resolve pressed into paper.